And welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Tobs Talk. I'm Jake Donnelly. Tobs Talk is sponsored by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. Well, the last time we spoke, the Tobs were at 10-10. Now they're at 12-10. They've won their last two games. They defeated the Martinsville Mustangs a couple nights ago, and then 2 nights ago, they defeated the Morehead City Marlins in Morehead City. That game against the Mustangs was a really weird game. It was here at Fleming Stadium. The Tobs were down 1-0 until the bottom of the 6th inning when the Tobs had a runner on with 1 out, and Seth LaRue came to the plate and hit what looked like a routine fly ball down the left field line. However, the Mustangs left fielder Adam Goss was unable to locate the ball. It fell in and ended up as a double for LaRue, and the Tobs had guys on second and third with 1 out. That brought up the cleanup hitter Taylor Nichols, and he popped one up to the second baseman. However, the second baseman couldn't locate the baseball either. It fell in, driving in a run, but Nichols kept on rounding first base despite the fact that LaRue stayed on second, and then the right fielder threw the first baseman threw over to third, and LaRue got tagged out despite the fact that the third baseman didn't actually tag out Seth LaRue. If that sounds really confusing, well, it's because the play was really confusing, and when it was all said and done, it was 1-1, and the CPL RBI king Ben Schmucker was coming to the plate, and lightning at Fleming, which delayed the game for 46 minutes. And after the 46-minute lightning delay, Schmucker came up, and in just 2 pitches later, he grounded out to the second baseman, ending the inning 1-1. Well, the Tobs would actually take the lead in the bottom of the 8th inning, scoring 3 runs, and that's when head coach Justin Hay called on Chris Williams for the 3rd time this season in a save situation. Williams came into the game, and he retired the side in order. His 3rd save in as many situations. Julio Valdez, who started the game for the Tobs, re-aggravated a back injury that he had kind of tweaked in his prior start against the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs. Quinn Atwood had to come in the top of the 3rd inning with 2 guys on and nobody out, and he threw just 5 pitches to get out of the inning. Michael Belcher went 3 innings for the Tobs, allowed just 1 run on 3 kind of dink hits, a bloop to left, a bloop to right, and then a fly ball to center, which kind of fell in that Bermuda Triangle out beyond the second base bag. So a little bit unlucky that he allowed a run, but he did a good job of really taking the bullpen and handing it off to Chris Williams and Daniel Batts. Batts ended up picking up the win for the Tobs. He's now 2-0 on the season. Well, after the Tobs defeated the Mustangs, they stood at 11-10. They then went to Morehead City. The Tobs have faced the Marlins 3 times this season, but every single time it has been at home. So we were wondering, how would the Tobs play against the Marlins on the road? And, well, it ended up being okay. A 6-1 victory in 7 innings. The Tobs had 3 games in a row, which were delayed by rain. First, the Peninsula Pilots. The start of the game didn't get going. Then they had the lightning delay against the Martinsville Mustangs, and then a rain delay against the Marlins. It didn't really stop Seth LaRue, though, who had a terrific week for the Tobs. He went 10 for 18. He drove in 7. He scored 4 times. He had a couple of doubles, and he even stole a bag in his only attempt on the week. He actually started things off real well for the Tobs in that game against the Marlins, a 2-run blast, scoring Doug Teagarden as well as himself and giving the Tobs a 2-0 lead. John Valek would allow a run in the bottom of the 2nd inning, but that is the only run he would allow in 6 innings. By the time he left the game, the Tobs were up 2-1, and the rain was really starting to come down. In the top of the 7th inning, the Tobs would score 4 more runs, including 2 on an opposite field double by Taylor Nichols, one of his best swings of the season. He told me on the bus, man, that felt good. I told him, Taylor, it also looked pretty good as well. The Tobs scored 4 runs in that inning. They took a 6-1 lead, and Braden Bristow, despite walking 3 guys in the bottom of the 7th inning, was able to finish off the inning, and then just a deluge of rain started coming down, and the umpiring crew decided to call the game off, and that made it the Tobs' 2nd win in a row. They now sit at 12-10 on the season, and prior to the Martinsville Mustangs game, the Tobs had The Tobs had committed an error in every single game that they had played since June 4th. Now, with the game against the Mustangs and the game against the Marlins, the Tobs have now had 2 errorless games in a row. We'll see what they can do tonight against the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs. That game is at 7:05 with gates opening at 6 o'clock. The Tobs will try to make it 3 in a row. And the man who is trying to get the Tobs to 3 in a row, Justin Hay, will be with me right after the next break here on Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris on Greenlight Channel 2. Welcome back, everybody, to this edition of Tobs Talk. I'm Jake Donnelly, and Tobs Talk is presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. With me now is head coach of the Tobs, Justin Hay. Justin, thank you for coming in this morning. Last time we talked, the Tobs were 10-10, but now little mini winning streak. They sit at 12-10. What have they done well over the last couple of games?
Well, we've kind of figured some things out on defense, as we were talking about right before we went on air. And, you know, we've played really good defense, but we've got really good pitching over the last two games. And the first game, it was kind of a bullpen effort. We had a starter go out in the second. Last night, it was a starting effort. John Valek threw 6, and Bridgestone came in and threw the 7th. So, you know, it's kind of two different performances, but it helped, and we both got a win out of both of them. So.
And you mentioned the bullpen day a couple nights back against the Martinsville Mustangs. Julio Valdez had to leave after not recording it out in the third inning because of a back injury that he re-aggravated, something that kind of tweaked in the start against the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs. When you had to go to those bullpen nights, what do you think to yourself as a head coach and pitching coach?
You just think we got to find somebody that can eat some innings. You know, when you start looking down the bench, you look for the guy who you think can throw the most innings that night and kind of save your bullpen. And that's what we did. Look down the bench, Belcher sitting down there, and I think I know he can go 3, 4, 5 innings. And I think if it wasn't for the lightning delay, I think he probably would have thrown 5 or 6 innings because he was throwing really well.
Yeah, and he ended up throwing 3 innings in that game, and then you used a couple more arms. The last arm you ended up using was Chris Williams, who's now 3 for 3 on the season in save opportunities. What is he doing out there on the mound that makes him so effective?
Well, for one inning, Chris has got 2 pitches that are very, very good. He's got a fastball and a very good curveball that kind of keeps people off balance. And I think the 3 times he's come out of the pen, he hasn't even used his changeup, but he's thrown strikes, and that's why I like Chris in that role, is because he comes in, he throws strikes, and almost forces contact. You know, I bet in those 3 saves he doesn't have very many strikeouts. I think most of his outs are ground balls or fly balls, which is good. You know, but he does have a strikeout pitch when he needs it if he does get in a tough situation.
Yeah, in those 3 save situations, I believe he only has 1 strikeout per inning. He doesn't have 1 appearance where he struck out more than 2 guys in those save situations, so you're right on the money with that one. But you've been talking about throwing strikes the entire summer. One guy who's been throwing a lot of strikes is the guy who picked up the latest win for the Tobs, John Valek. Valek, not really the hardest throwing lefty, but that changeup, is that really the out pitch for him?
I would say it is, but at the same time, he gets people out with movement in the zone. Nothing he throws goes straight, and that's what we like about him. He throws pitches in the zone. He doesn't walk a lot of people. He makes them get themselves out, and that's what I'm trying to get some of our guys who throw the ball a little bit harder to understand. If they would learn some stuff from him and say, hey, I can pitch in the zone with movement and get people out, they would be a little bit more effective and go deeper into games. And that's a learning process. And a lot of guys think that in this league you're holding a wood bat, we got to throw it harder, but that's not always the case. John does a very good job of pitching. We call it pitchability. He's got 3 pitches for strikes, and when he's on, it's like watching, you know, a mini Greg Maddux from the left side. I mean, it's almost impressive sometimes the way he pitches and works the count. He calls his own game, you know. So him and his catcher get together and work, and you know, he throws changeups and fastball counts and pitches backwards and pitches forwards, and you know, sometimes it's just nice to sit down and watch John pitch.
And you talked about trying to get the other pitchers to buy into that. What do you have to do as a coach, as the pitching coach, to get the other pitchers to buy into pitching the way that John is apparently throwing this summer?
Well, I hope that John's actually helping me out a little bit with that, because I now have an example of, see guys, you can pitch this way, and this is more effective. Because as starters, a lot of our guys aren't starters, or they're trying to become starters for their college team. So they're not really sure on how to go about that. And they do have the reliever role where you have to strike people out and you have to nibble the strike zone. You can't just go in there and pitch. And John's showing them that you can go in there and get people out of the box in 3 pitches. And whether you give up a hit or not, that's fine. As long as there's not a walk in front of it, you're going to be okay. And that's what we're going for with our starters, is to get deeper into the game, get to the 7th, get to the 6th with a chance so that our bullpen can take over. You know, if you only get to the 4th because they've thrown 80 pitches, but they haven't given up a hit, that really doesn't help us. You know, if we get to the 7th with 4 hits, no walks, and maybe 1 run, then it's a lot better.
All right, and the Tobs are playing a lot better as of late. They've won their last 2, looking to make it 3 in a row against the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs here tonight at Fleming Stadium. Game starts at 7:05, gates open at 6 o'clock. Yet again, Justin, thank you for coming in this morning. Really do appreciate it. We're going to be right back here on Tobs Talk. A lot more guests to come on Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris, right here on Greenlight Channel 2. Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Tobs Talk. I'm Jake Donnelly. Tobs Talk is presented by Thomas and Ferris, right here on Greenlight Channel 2. With me now is Barry Page, Executive Director of the Wilson Arts Council. And Barry, I have to ask you, how did you get into the Arts Council?
Well, my undergraduate degree was in music, and I love the arts, have always loved the arts. I grew up in Stantonsburg on a tobacco farm, and I understand that you also grew up on a tobacco farm, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. My actual farm was animals, but I grew up in a tobacco town, which was cigar tobacco, shade and broadleaf, the kind of tobacco you guys don't grow out here. You guys do cigarette tobacco. We do cigar tobacco up in Suffield.
You're exactly right. I'm so proud of you for coming down here to be a part of the world's greatest tobacco market. Now, I grew up on a tobacco farm in Stantonsburg, only 15 minutes away from Wilson. And when I was in high school, Dr. Bedingfield and his wife would get some of the kids from Stantonsburg to come in to work at the Arts Council or to do things with the Arts Council. And we went to concerts. So I saw my first concerts there. And then I was in choir. At that time, choir only met 2 times a week. Long story made, much shorter, because I can make a short story long.
I don't doubt that.
Good for you. I went to UNCG and majored in music. When I left there, I sang for a year and a half in New York, was never unemployed, which was good. You know, when you can sing and you can read music well, you have a pretty good chance of getting jobs. So I did that, and then I came back and became a school teacher, a music school teacher. Then I became a elementary school principal, and then I retired in 2006, and I wanted to continue being in the arts, and my wife said, you gotta get a job. I don't want you staying at home because I can't retire yet. And she filled out a resume, and I became the Executive Director of the Arts Council of Wilson, Incorporated, period.
Okay, well, after that explanation, I have to ask, what do you do with the Arts Council?
Well, I'm actually responsible for maintaining the staff and for keeping the goals and the visions of the arts going in Wilson. We have so many programs that are offered through the Arts Council. Actually, the Arts Council of Wilson in Wilson County is the only entity that does cultural arts and does it for the entire community. We don't just do it for Wilson and the city of Wilson. We also do the county, the entire county. In 1965-66, there was a general statute that said every community had to have a designated county arts partner. Well, that was no one right then. The county had to fund someone to do it. So Wilson, with its wonderful vision, in 1967 developed the Arts Council of Wilson, and since then we have been growing. We have gone to 3 different locations. Now we're in the original BB&T building on the corner of Goldsboro and Nash Street, and it was a 1903 building and is the oldest remaining BB&T building. And what we do there is run 4 galleries and several classrooms. Right now we're working on the King and I, and they're practicing on the upstairs. And then we manage also in 1989 and 1996 was when we actually opened the Edna Boykin Cultural Center. So the Arts Council and me as the custodian of the Arts Council manages the Wilson Arts Center, the 1903 BB&T building, and the Edna Boykin Cultural Center, the 1919 Vaudeville Theater that has been refurbished. That's the basic.
Okay, and I know you mentioned the King and I. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. How did you guys decide on what play to go with, and who was in charge of all that?
Well, we decided because one of our great guys that is an incredible musician, Jeremy Tucker, they threw in a bunch of ideas. They threw in Peter Pan with the flying apparatus. They threw in Oklahoma, which I like because I love that show. But then they said King and I. They said, King and I is a great show because you can have children, you have middle-aged children, and then it's a family production. The summer show is always a family production. So we have children from age 5 all the way to a guy that went with me to UNCG, and he is probably 64. So we have a wide range of children and adults in this particular show. And the King and I, what better show to talk about bringing people together and about change and about moving from the old Siam to the new Siam. Do you know the show?
Yes, I do, a little bit. Not a lot, a little bit. Now, if we talked about The Sound of Music, I could go that one through and through. Unfortunately, because my older sister used to have that playing on our VHS just on
All
loop
the time.
all the time. And she, like everyone else in my family, has a horrendous singing voice, but she, like everyone else in my family, it doesn't stop her from singing. So I've got The Sound of Music down and also The Little Mermaid, and that's because my little sister. So I was smushed right in between. I guess you can tell now that in my family, it's the women, like I think most families, who are in charge and really run things. So
He's right.
older sister got to do whatever she wanted, little sister got to do what she wanted, and if somebody got blamed, that was always me. So The King and I is running from when to when?
Okay, it starts on July the 16th. It goes 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th in the afternoon at 3 o'clock.
Okay, at 3 o'clock. So when the Tobs have home games, go from The King and I straight
Straight
over
to
to Fleming Stadium when the games will start at 7:05. Gates opening at 6. So from when to when? One more time.
It starts on July, and I was wrong. It starts on July 16th.
Okay.
And goes July 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th at 7:30. And then on the 20th, it's on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay, so then we might have some kind of competition going on then. But of course, you folks at home are going to make the right decision. Well,
Well,
Barry,
you can do both.
You can do both, absolutely. Barry, thank you for coming on this morning. I
Yes,
really
sir.
do appreciate it. Barry Page, Executive Director with the Wilson Arts Council. After that, we're going to have past president of the Wilson Arts Council, Dell Joyner, joining me in just a moment right here on Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris on Greenlight Channel 2. And welcome back, everybody, to Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris, right here on Greenlight Channel 2. I'm Jake Donnelly. Alongside me right now is Dell Joyner, past president of the Wilson Arts Council. And you were telling me right before we got on air just exactly why you decided to join the Arts Council. And what was that?
Well, I've always helped out the community, and I've been past president of a lot of organizations and still active in a lot of those organizations. And I was asked to be on the Arts Council board, which was, it's a great honor because they don't bring on that many new people every year. So I took the challenge, and then next thing I know, I'm vice president, and then I'm president. And then they said, well, we've got this big thing going on. I said, well, I'll do president again. And so now I'm past president, and so it's been a fun ride. But being president of a lot of organizations, I would definitely say the Arts Council was most fun because it's so diverse. There's so many different things going on around the Arts Council. You never get bored. It's always something going on in the Arts Council.
And what are some of the things going on? We talked about and we heard
Right.
about the King and I, but what are some other things that are going on?
Well, you may be like woodworking, wood carvers, we got that. You may be in pottery, they've got a big pottery group. You may be someone who thinks you may be able to paint. Well, they've got some paint and pour classes where you can come and they'll teach you how to paint pictures. It's really great. My wife went and painted, and actually I didn't know she could paint, and she didn't know she could paint. But she did a great job with it, and I was hanging in our house. So that's the kind of thing that we're helping the citizens be able to reach out and get into plays. And even if you may not have any talent whatsoever, you can go to the Arts Council and do lighting. You can do the audiovisual. There's all set design, moving sets. They need a little bit of everybody in every facet. So there's something everybody can do, because the way I've always said it, my 2 years as president, not every child's going to kick a soccer ball. So you need to have something in there for all the kids to do, because if they're active in the arts, they're not active in troublemaking. So it's a good venue. So that's what I enjoy with the Arts Council. It's a great opportunity for people to get active with some of their fellow Wilsonians. Mm-hmm. So it's a good organization.
And a productive way to spend their time. And speaking of productive, not only have you been a part of the Wilson Arts Council and of course with the Joyner Funeral Home, but you're also a host parent this summer, as you have been for the last couple of summers,
right.
for the Wilson Tobs, and you have Christian Slasnick.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's one more kid in the household now?
Well, so if you've got teenagers, you know exactly what it's like. You wake up in the morning, there's a car in the driveway. And then when you come home, the car's missing, food's missing, there's a few things scattered around. And it's a typical situation. Then in the middle of the night, someone comes in the house and they don't bother you, so you don't bother them. But it's been great. It's been great. I have a 4-year-old son, Jake, and he loves it. He loves having a ball player in the house. So it's been really, very, very rewarding for us to be able to host and get to know a lot of the young men. And the dedication they have, because they're taking their summer. They leave literally almost from school and come to Wilson, and they stay here until it's time for them to go back to school. That's the dedication for the whole summer, to give up, to come and do this, and to be gone every day. They have very few days off, and even when they are off, they're training, they're going to the gym, and there's a little bit of relaxation. It's not all work, but the dedication is definitely there, and I see it in every one of the Tobs players, and my hat's off to whoever recruits them, because they know what they're doing. They're bringing in some good players, dedicated players. My players live in Missouri, so he traveled a long ways. He's not from home. He's gone from home a long time. So it's pretty neat. If you got an extra bedroom in your house, let the Tobs know. They'll be glad to put somebody in there, because I tell you, it is fun. It is fun having someone in your house, and because you hear different kind of stories and stuff, and you learn a lot. And my sons learned a lot from you. It's like a big brother to look up to. So it's been very rewarding.
All right, well, Dell, thank you for everything from the Wilson Arts Council, especially also being a host parent this summer. Really thank you, and thank you for coming in this morning.
Come out tonight and enjoy the game. Always go out to the Tobs, enjoy the game. It's great fun.
All right, so Dell's doing my job. You heard him. Make sure you come out to the game tonight, 7:05 against the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs. Gates open at 6 o'clock. We'll have a lot more on this edition of Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas & Ferris on Greenlight Channel 2. Welcome back, everybody, to this edition of Tobs Talk. I'm Jake Donnelly, and Tobs Talk is presented by Thomas & Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. I'm joined right now by David Bylerly, the HR manager with Bridgestone Tire. David, thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So as an HR manager, what is it you're in charge of? Jobs?
What I do is take care of that talent that we try to get, making sure that we find the right talent, that we hire it, and that we keep it, and we motivate it and help develop it from start to finish.
And you were mentioning about how before you came to Bridgestone, they had something like 30 years without any layoffs, and since then,
right.
You've been working for 10 years, and that's still the case?
That's right. It's 40 years last March, and at that point, we've never laid off a production person in 40 years.
And what are some of the reasons for that, do you think?
Well, we try to manage the business well, in addition to which we feel a loyalty to the people that work there in the community, and we get that loyalty back from those people. And so as a result, we've insisted that during tough economic times, we run a little over, and we never lay anybody off.
And that's amazing. It's a place that's been here in Wilson for something like 50 years, right?
40.
40 years, okay, so 40 years, and in that entire time, you guys haven't had any corporate layoffs or anything like that. And also, it's not just the fact that you guys aren't firing anybody, but you're also doing your part on helping out the community in terms of the nature in the community.
That's exactly right. We've actually just received the Underwriter Laboratories certification, the first in the world for any company, as zero waste to landfill, which means nothing goes to the landfill. And that we're extremely proud of.
And what does that mean, the zero waste to landfill? Do you mind expounding on that a bit?
It means that nothing that we produce or any waste that we produce is sent to the landfill. It's all reused, it's put back into the system so that we ensure that we're taking care of the planet for everybody.
And so does that mean things like artificial turf fields? Because I know when you're working with tires, there's got to be a lot of rubbers and stuff like that.
It is. Matter of fact, if you'll go out to the Gillette Park, you'll see some of our rubber that we've donated there in the playgrounds. As far as that goes, we have it that's produced. We actually have two rubber farms, one in Liberia and one in Malaysia. And those people, we employ thousands of people. I have the best hospitals and schools in the country. And we take care of and take our responsibility extremely seriously as far as being a good corporate citizen.
And we mentioned the fact that you guys aren't laying off anybody, but it's not just that Bridgestone is stagnant, you're also hiring. What are some of the positions that are open right now?
Through mostly retirements and people who have actually gone through and put in their years and retired, we have openings, and it's in production. So we have entry-level positions, and all people have to do is go to any of the NC Works, which used to be Employment Security, and at that point, or they can call us, and we'll tell them how to take the course that's required. We're also hiring engineers. We're hiring into some staff positions. We have maintenance positions that are open. We have the best wages and benefits in Eastern North Carolina. So it's a great place to work.
And how did you end up working for Bridgestone?
When I did, actually, I was headhunted by Bridgestone. I was working with Eaton Corporation, and I was really just tired of doing layoffs. And so when I came and saw the people that worked at the plant and actually saw this community, decided that this is a place that I wanted to be.
And it's a place that's been open for 40 years and hasn't had any layoffs in those 40 years.
That's exactly right.
It seems like I'm having trouble understanding that, but I've seen enough places where that is absolutely not the case. So just a terrific company right here in Wilson, as it has been for the last 40 years.
And proud to support Wilson.
And proud to support Wilson, and also hiring at the moment.
That's right.
All right.
That's
Well,
right.
David, thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Really do appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, folks. More to go on this episode of Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas and Ferris, right here on Greenlight Channel 2. Welcome back, everybody, to this edition of Tobs Talk. I'm Jake Donnelly, and Tobs Talk is presented by Thomas and Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2. With me now is pitcher for the Wilson Tobs, John Valek III, who has 3 wins on the summer. John, thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you.
I know it's difficult, but you did have the day off yesterday, but I still have to ask, how tired are you right now?
I'm not so bad now with the off day, but the travel schedule has been pretty brutal so far, and we got some more away games coming up this week. But having the off day really helps, just laying down, relaxing, watching the World Cup game. Just get some time to get away from baseball and just lay down, relax, hang out with some guys, and have some downtime.
Now, you should be a little used to this because you were on the Tobs last year. Has that helped you with the transition from spring ball to summer ball?
Definitely, because I know what to expect. I knew coming into Wilson, how everything is here. Going into summers, when you're going from team to team, every team works things differently, traveling and how they go about their business. But I knew everything going into this summer, exactly how it was going to be. New coaching staff and everything. But for the most part, I knew everybody in the front office, so it was an easy transition because I just knew exactly what to expect.
And we hear a lot about the adjustments that guys have to make going from the BB Core bats to the wooden bats, and it's the same for both pitchers and players. For you, though, any transition at all?
No, not really. I mean, to be successful, you throw strikes, get ahead, and make the hitters get themselves out. I mean, hitters are successful if they're, successful 3 out of 10 times. So, you're going to succeed more than you're going to fail as a pitcher as long as you just let them get themselves out. But with the wood bats, obviously it helps because it's harder to hit the ball further than it is with the aluminum bats. So, but I mean, there's nothing really different. It just should make your job a little bit easier, I would think, with the wood bats. But you should just do the same thing you do with the aluminums.
And you were here during the interview with head coach Justin Hay. He called you a mini Greg Maddux. That had to put a smile on your face, right?
It did make me laugh. But the one pitcher that I always, looked after when I was younger was Tom Glavine. I kind of, pitch like him or try to pitch like him. Obviously, he's a Cy Young winner and probably Hall of Famer. But that's who I, that's who I idolize when I grew up. And I like to just, throw strikes. And I know I don't overpower anybody, but like I said, you're going to get hitters out as long as you throw the ball in the zone.
And so what's your mind frame out there on the mound because you're not one of the harder pitchers in the league?
I mean, I know I have to work harder at, with my movement and location. And me making a mistake may hurt me more than it's going to hurt somebody who's throwing harder. But, I just take pride in, being efficient, throwing strikes, keeping the pitch count low, keeping the defense moving and honest. Strikeouts are a good thing, but there's better things than that. Just getting them out in 3 or less pitches is good, and really taking pride in the pitch count so you can go deeper into games, and that's how I try to go about my pitching.
So you abide by the old saying of strikeouts are fascist.
Yeah, exactly. If I get a strikeout, I always in my head on the mound, I'm like, well, that was cool, but let's try and get this next guy out in less pitches. But I mean, the strikeouts really aren't a big thing to me. They're just style points, I guess you could say.
Yeah, well, you're pretty much styling out on the mound. 3-0 this summer for the Tobs at the moment. But now I have to ask you the hardest question that every single guy gets tripped up on. What is your favorite baseball memory?
Well, the funny thing is me being a pitcher pretty much from high school, the beginning of high school on, you would think it'd be a pitching moment, but I always said I wanted to get one more at bat. But back when I hit, when I was 12 years old in the Cooperstown tournament, I always remembered hitting a home run on the championship field there. And I can hear every time I replay that moment in my head, I can hear the bleachers click of the ball landing in the bleachers. But I loved hitting back then. Now I'm obviously a pitcher and don't get to hit anymore, but every time I think back about my past days playing, I always go back to that moment of hitting that home run.
Think there's any chance you can sneak in at bat in this summer?
I always ask Coach Hay, even at Akron, I asked the hitting coach, you got to give me an at bat. I'm feeling comfortable today. And they always tell me I'm available for pinch hit, but I think they're just messing with me.
Yeah, well, you know what? Sometimes you can't get everything you want, although right now it seems like you're doing everything you want on the mound, 3-0. You just got the victory against the Morehead City Marlins. So thank you for coming in this morning, John. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, folks, when we come back, we'll wrap up this segment of Tobs Talk right here on Greenlight Channel 2. And welcome back, everybody, to Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas & Ferris, right here on Greenlight Channel 2. I'm Jake Donnelly, and I'd like to say thank you to everybody who came in today. From Bridgestone Tire's David Bylerly and the Wilson Arts Council's Dell, Joyner, and Barry Page, thank you all for coming in. Another special thank you to head coach of the Tobs, Justin Hay. Love the fact and the insight that Coach Hay can give us to the Tobs team, as well as the very special thanks goes out to the Tob who came in this morning. That was John Valek III, who is now 3-0 on the season after that win against the Morehead City Marlins. Well, the Tobs sit at 12-10 on the season. They are 2-1 against tonight's opponent, that is the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs. They have won 1 at home and 1 on the road. The only game they have dropped so far this season was down in Fayetteville, so we'll see if they can make it 3-1 on the season. The first pitch is scheduled for 7:05. Gates open at 6 o'clock. It is a game that is sponsored by the Wilson Arts Council, and you will have face painting as well as a ton of other really fun stuff to get to. So make sure you come on in to Fleming at 6 o'clock. It's also sponsored by Bridgestone Tire. Remember, folks, first pitch is at 7:05. Gates open at 6 o'clock for tonight's game against the Fayetteville Swamp Dogs. I'm Jake Donnelly saying thank you for tuning in once again to Tobs Talk, presented by Thomas & Ferris right here on Greenlight Channel 2, and hopefully we'll see you all at Fleming.